to fight for it. And when we fight, we win. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
Vice President Kamala Harris not wasting any time hitting the campaign trail in her first rally of her presidential campaign. The question now is, when will her nomination be set in stone? I'm Morgan Chesky in for Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. Good evening, and tonight endorsements are pouring in and fundraising sure seems to be supercharged. Barely 48 hours into campaign mode, and it appears Vice President Kamala Harris has hit the ground running, holding her first campaign rally in the battleground state of Wisconsin, where she pledged to unite her party and win in November. Harris now the clear frontrunner for the party's presidential nomination, with a majority of pledged Democratic convention delegates already endorsing her, which today included party leaders, Senator Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
Kamala Harris and her candidacy has excited and energized the House Democratic Caucus, the Democratic Party, and the nation. Vice President Harris has earned the nomination.
Now, Democrats are looking to nominate their ticket virtually by August 7th instead of waiting for their convention, which means Harris will have just about 2 weeks to pick a running mate. And that attention is quickly moving to where else? The betting markets. Meanwhile, NBC News is reporting that the Harris campaign has requested vetting materials from these 5 potential running mates. Take a look. This is what some of them had to say about the potential run.
I really want her to, I want to respect her process, give her the space to pick the best person, and I'm just not going to comment on her process.
And I said I'll be there to do whatever I can to help, and that's where we're at this point.
I'm going to work my tail off for her. The Vice President now has an incredibly important and deeply personal decision to make.
Yeah, important decision indeed. And tracking all of the speculation, NBC's Hallie Jackson, who joins us now. And Hallie, let's start with, who do you think seems to be the vice president's most obvious choice for, well, Vice President?
Hey there, Morgan. So this unexpected round of Veep stakes on the Democratic side is putting battleground and battleground adjacent governors into the spotlight. You've got Roy Cooper of North Carolina. He's known Harris for years as a fellow former state attorney general. There's Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, who won office in a landslide there. Tim Walz of Minnesota, head of the Democratic Governors Association, and Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, who has said she's only interested in her current job for now. There's also Mark Kelly. He's the Democratic senator from Arizona. He's well-liked in that chamber. Multiple sources tell NBC News vetting materials have been requested from all of them. I'd also keep an eye on the speculation about Kentucky's Andy Beshear and about Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, with a source familiar with the VP selection process telling me it is moving along. Now, there's no firm deadline, but the campaign may want to make a pick before August 7th. Circle that date on your calendar to try to avoid potential legal challenges if the ticket is not set by then. Morgan?
That clock is ticking, Hallie. Thank you. I want to go back to Milwaukee now, where just days after the GOP united behind the Trump-Vance ticket, Vice President Harris chose the very same city for her very first campaign rally. Visitors described it as a fiery, energetic call to action.
We are not going back. We are not going back. And I'll tell you why we're not going back. Because ours is a fight for the future.
NBC's Yamiche Alcindor with more on what the vice president is calling a choice between freedom and chaos.
This, of course, has been a critical day for Vice President Kamala Harris. She came here to Wisconsin to kick off her campaign with its first big campaign rally. And she really, in some ways, laid out what will be the case for her campaign and what she's going to be telling voters to get behind her. She talked about the fact that she has incredible strength in being a former prosecutor, also, and of course, being on the job as the vice president. But she also talked about what she sees as former President Trump's deep flaws. Take a listen.
I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters, who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
So really, that's the thesis that she's going to really be making across the next couple of months here. She's going to be saying, I'm a prosecutor, he's a convict, you make the choice. I also should tell you that I was in the room in there while she was really had a crowd of people who were energized and clapping and in some cases even crying, thinking about her candidacy. She talked a bit about the middle class, saying that she has a vision for America, that it's a vision that's inclusive, that's a vision that also includes the government not telling women what to do with their bodies, leaning, of course, in on that messaging when it comes to pushing for abortion rights. She also talked about the fact that she really believes that she can both earn this nomination, because she talked about the fact that she feels like she has clinched the number of nominees needed to become the official nominee of the Democratic Party. We're not calling her the presumptive nominee right now, but she is inching closer and closer to doing that. She's certainly the front runner. So it's a lot really to talk about here as she came to Wisconsin. I also want to say that she talked about the fact that this was the biggest campaign event that the Biden-Harris and, of course, now the Harris campaign has ever held. And she talked about fundraising. She said in the last 24 hours, this presidential campaign has raised more money than any other presidential campaign in history. So that was a big, big line. And the 3,000 people that gathered here to see her in Wisconsin were cheering about that. They were also cheering, lock him up and don't go back, leaning in on that, of course, messaging about Trump and also leaning on that messaging about the future. So she's going to be campaigning. Tomorrow she's going to Indianapolis, but we're going to be seeing her crisscross the country as she makes her case to voters. Morgan?
Yamiche, thank you. And today, President Biden returned to the White House after spending nearly a week in isolation recovering from COVID. He left his home in Delaware with mask in hand. It's also the first time he'll be back in Washington since suddenly ending his re-election bid. Speaking of which, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, he will address the nation from the Oval Office, where he says he'll elaborate on, quote, what lies ahead and how he will finish the job for the American people. With that, we bring in NBC's chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander. Peter, the president may have more Americans tuned in tomorrow than any other speech he's ever given. What more do we know about what he's expected to say tomorrow night, or any key points the president may focus on?
Yeah, Morgan, I think this is clearly going to be a bittersweet speech for the president as he is explaining his decision to exit the race, not going to run for another 4 years here. We're told by multiple sources familiar with his planned speech tomorrow that the president will also, though, focus on what he hopes to accomplish over the course of the next 6 months before he leaves office. Obviously, that's a much more challenging thing to do right now, given the fact that he is a lame duck president. Among the top priorities for this president right now, trying to make sure that they're able to distribute the hundreds of billions of dollars that have been passed, including from the Infrastructure Act, that bipartisan effort to deliver money for roads and bridges and airports around the country. A major focus going forward, of course, is going to be on the issue of trying to find a ceasefire in Gaza right now. But I wouldn't be surprised, Morgan, based on my conversations, if we hear the president reiterate in part what he said yesterday when speaking by phone to Kamala Harris, who was at what is now her campaign headquarters in Delaware, saying that he intends to remain fully engaged, to do whatever he can to support her campaign going forward, saying the name at the top of the ticket may have changed, but the mission has not, really focused on securing the accomplishments he's already delivered to this point. Morgan?
Yeah, Peter, crucial context there. So I'm curious, despite this lame duck title, if President Biden had any key goals going forward he specifically would want to accomplish, how would he exactly do so here with everyone knowing the status of the 2024 race?
Yeah, you're right. And in particular, as it relates to a variety of different topics, including those federal vacancies in the judiciary. Right now, there are 48 open seats by last count, open judicial seats right now. That's not the Supreme Court, but other judges around the country. And without Senate Republicans' willingness to play along, to approve any of those judges, it's going to be very difficult for the president to succeed in that effort. And as it relates to the Infrastructure Act in particular, that's one of many efforts that the president was able to deliver as president, but one that Democrats, including those inside this White House, fear that if he wins, former President Trump, as a re-elected President Trump, could try to roll back, could try to get rid of.
Peter, you've covered this administration since it began. I'm curious, is there anything you're going to be looking for, not necessarily from a policy standpoint, but more so from a personal one, when the president sits in the Oval Office and addresses the nation, the likes of which we haven't seen since LBJ?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You know, that's 6 decades ago, and this is a president who has served for 52 years in public service and public office. So I do think this is a pretty remarkable moment, one that certainly hasn't happened in our lifetimes, an opportunity to sort of look the American people in the eye, to thank them for supporting him, allowing him to serve the American people throughout the course of that time. I'm going to be struck as much by what we hear from him as much as those others who are in the room that only reporters gathered there will be able to see, and the emotions that they share. As you noted, the president finally returning to Washington for the first time after making it official that he would be leaving the 2024 presidential race, Morgan.
Yeah, an awful lot of history happening in real time. Peter Alexander, thanks so much. Tonight, the head of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, has officially resigned. And it comes just one day after she refused to do so when hammered by congressional lawmakers over the agency's failure to prevent the assassination attempt on former President Trump.
Remain on and be responsible to the agency, to this committee, to the former president, and to the American public.
Both sides of the aisle today have asked for your resignation. Would you like to use my 5 minutes to draft your resignation letter, yes or no?
No, thank you.
Today, in a letter obtained by NBC News, Cheadle writes, quote, "In light of recent events, it is with a heavy heart that I've made the difficult decision to step down as your director." I want to bring you now NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley. Julia, I'm curious. We know at least one lawmaker had been lobbying for impeachment here. So what's reaction been like now that Cheadle has officially resigned?
Well, it's been a rare bipartisan applause, Morgan. We've heard from members, particularly from that House Oversight Committee that you saw grill her yesterday on both sides of the aisle, who said this was a move in the right direction, though they do say this does not close the chapter on what happened on July 13th, and they're going to continue to ask for answers, whether that be through reviews, investigations, or subpoenas that they've already asked for from DHS. Here's what some of those members had to say today.
Oh, I'm glad she resigned. I mean, she did a horrible job in our hearing yesterday. I don't even know why she showed up.
You saw yesterday both Democrats and Republicans alike coming together, unifying the country on this issue. Everyone agreed that she has to go.
It's a good day to see that leadership is moving and the reforms needed at the Secret Service are coming.
And former President Trump did not miss a beat here to take the moment to post on Truth Social, saying the Biden-Harris administration did not properly protect me, and I was forced to take a bullet for democracy. It was my great honor to do so. That was Trump's response today to Cheadle stepping down.
Julia, President Biden said he did plan to appoint a new director soon. Any idea of who that could be and how soon?
It's tough to say. Usually Secret Service directors are taken from within the ranks, and right now there is an interim director. Acting Secret Service director is Ronald Rowe, who was the #2 before Cheadle stepped down. He has a 25-year history, and he's a veteran of the Secret Service there. But I will point out, as deputy, his role was to oversee the investigative and protective daily operations of Secret Service. So he is by no means immune from what happened on July 13th. And he will obviously be taking a lot of the brunt and questions in those investigations now, especially until a new director is named.
Yeah, important context there, Julia. And also today, the House Homeland Security held yet another hearing on the assassination attempt. Have we learned anything new here?
No, in fact, I talked to Chairman Green just as he was leaving that hearing. They are going to continue to press for questions. One thing they said, particularly on this Iranian threat, which is separate from the Trump assassination attempt, but it was another threat that the Secret Service knew about. What Chairman Green said that he learned in that hearing was that the Secret Service had information for 14 days before they told Trump that there was an Iranian attempt, that there was information they had that the Iranians may try to attack him. So more information coming from that hearing, but still so many lingering questions. Morgan.
All right, much more to come. Julia Ainsley, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington all week, and things are not exactly going as planned for the world leader. His White House meeting for today was postponed to Thursday, and Vice President Harris will not be presiding over his address to Congress come tomorrow, which brought protesters to the Capitol today. NBC News Chief Washington correspondent Andrea Mitchell has more.
At the Capitol today, hundreds of anti-war protesters ahead of Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech here tomorrow. The Capitol Police making arrests. Meeting with American hostage families Monday night. Netanyahu telling them the conditions are ripening to bring their loved ones home in this video released by his office. For the first time, the prime minister is signaling progress. But the parents of American hostage Hersh Goldberg Poland told Netanyahu they want him to announce a deal now.
He indicated last night that maybe it's not quite there, and we're not going to stop pushing. We need to get this done.
Rachel, every day is a cut through your heart.
For us, it's our only son, and it is an indescribable torment.
The family's telling House members today.
We met Prime Minister Netanyahu again. I have to say the urgency of the matter did not seem to resonate with him.
The time is now to sign this deal, get the hostages home, and stop this killing.
Meanwhile, the war grinds on. Israel's military pummeling southern Gaza Monday. In a safe zone, it says targeting militants, but killing at least 70, injuring 200, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. The prime minister will meet with President Biden Thursday at the White House, followed by both Biden and Netanyahu holding an unprecedented joint meeting with the hostage families. And former President Trump, a Netanyahu supporter, says the prime minister is coming to Mar-a-Lago Friday.
Don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Coming up next, federal investigators want to know why Delta Airlines still hasn't recovered from that global computer outage. Why flight cancellations just keep on climbing. Plus, a scene out of a movie at Yellowstone National Park, the spectacular explosion caught on camera. And later this hour, lifting off into the future of space tourism. You know what some of the big names like Blue Origin are working on, but tonight we're taking a look at how some startups are trying to take you straight to the stratosphere. Stick around.
They're going to be able to see weather forming and moving. You know, they're going to see an organic Earth. They're going to see a living Earth. You know, and that's what's most important to us.
Welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we are keeping a close eye on tonight. Today, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez said he will resign next month, stemming from his conviction on federal corruption charges last week. That's when NBC News first reported that Menendez has begun calling allies to let them know he would be stepping down. Menendez says he will leave office on August 20th. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy says he will appoint a senator to fill out the rest of Menendez's term. Former President Donald Trump has appealed his nearly $500 million fraud judgment, calling it excessive, with his lawyers adding that it's, quote, a power grab by New York Attorney General Letitia James. James has repeatedly denied any claim of unfairness. A Missouri judge has overturned the conviction of a man who spent more than 30 years in prison for a murder he has long said he did not commit. Christopher Dunn was 18 when he was convicted, largely based on testimony from two young witnesses who later recanted their testimony. The ruling is likely to lead to Dunn's freedom, but it's not clear when that will take place. An Iowa law banning most abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy will go into effect come next week. It was signed a year ago, but legal challenges blocked its path until the state Supreme Court reversed a ruling last month. The new law does include exceptions for rape, incest, and medical emergencies that endanger the life of a pregnant woman. With the opening ceremony set for Friday, we are in the final stretches of getting the Olympic flame to Paris, and who else? Hip-hop legend Snoop Dogg will be carrying the torch on its last leg right to the base of the Eiffel Tower. We can only hope that he doesn't drop it like it's hot. There you go. Okay, the problems keep piling up for Delta Airlines. Hundreds more flight cancellations came today, all stemming from Friday's global computer meltdown. I mean, look at this. We are looking at one line at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Goodness. On top of those long lines, travelers also had to deal with lost luggage and personal items. We have a peek of unclaimed bags in Atlanta. Yikes. And if you think it couldn't get any worse, some on social media say they had to wait in even longer lines to try and get a voucher to get a hotel room, only to be told there aren't any left. Meanwhile, some passengers in Boston didn't even give it that luxury.
Like nothing, no vouchers, no accommodation.
All the hotel here a day was $370. So I tried to ask if we were gonna get a refund. I don't have a complete answer.
Now Delta's facing a federal investigation. NBC's Tom Costello has more on that travel nightmare.
Day 5 of Delta's summer meltdown.
We've all been wearing the same clothes for 2 days now.
Passengers still standing in hours-long lines, sleeping on airport floors, on telephone hold for 9 hours and more, and luggage piled high. 5,400 flights canceled since Friday morning, most at critical Delta hubs and airports.
We estimate that this has impacted hundreds of thousands of passengers, likely more than 500,000.
Now the DOT is investigating why Delta didn't recover from Friday's computer crash as quickly as other airlines, and whether it's providing refunds, rebooking passengers at no additional cost, and offering food and hotel vouchers. That computer crash crippled Delta's crew scheduling system.
Delta clearly has not been able to recover, and they need to take care of their customers. I made this clear directly to their CEO.
In a statement today, Delta said its teams are working tirelessly to care for and make it right for customers impacted by delays and cancellations. The airline, though, canceled another 473 flights today, 13% of its schedule.
Every time we got booked or rebooked, that flight got canceled.
The meltdown not as serious as Southwest's winter 2022 meltdown that affected millions of passengers, for which Southwest paid a $140 million fine. The DOT won't say what kind of fine Delta might have to pay, but it reminds passengers they're entitled to a full refund, not just a voucher, if their flights are canceled. Morgan?
Good advice, Tom. Thank you. Well, there is outrage growing tonight in Illinois after a woman called 911 for help and ended up shot and killed by police. NBC News has obtained body cam video of the incident, but we do want to warn you the images are disturbing. Now, the deadly encounter happened earlier this month when 36-year-old Sonia Massey reported a possible intruder. Deputy Sean Grayson and another officer found no one, so they then went inside Massey's home. Things escalated after she picked up a pot of boiling water from her stove.
Where you going?
Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
I
rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
You better not. I swear to God, I'll you straight in your face.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Drop the pot. Drop the pot. Drop the
19 shots fired.
Shots fired. Shots fired. I mean, what else do we do? I'm not taking hot boiling water to the face.
Police did blur Massey's body in the video. Grayson has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder charges and has been fired from the sheriff's office. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa joins us with what else we're learning tonight. Maggie.
Yeah, Morgan, you hear in that video a little bit later on in the aftermath of the shooting, now former Deputy Sean Grayson saying that Sonia Massey, in his words, was crazy and that he feared she was going to throw boiling water on him. It's really worth reiterating her family and their attorney, Ben Crump, they don't buy that story that Grayson believed that his life was in danger, that his safety was being threatened. They say you can see in the video that she crouched down and she said, "I'm sorry." And then they point out that Grayson kind of stepped closer and seemingly moved around the counter before shooting her. We have to point out police blurred her body in that video before releasing it. And Massey's son today said he hasn't been able to watch that video at all, at least not the moments where his mother was shot. Grayson has since been fired and indicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder. He's pleaded not guilty, and his attorney has declined to comment on the video's release. Now, Massey's father, who says that his daughter suffered from mental health issues, he's calling for the Sangamon County Sheriff's resignation, blaming Grayson's actions, at least in part, on department culture. Take a look.
This man should have never had a badge. He should have never had a gun. He should have never been given the opportunity to kill my child.
We're asking for full transparency on every level, how he was hired, the 911 calls, the communications, all the video, everything, and we won't stop.
So we should point out we reached out to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office and the sheriff specifically for a response to today's press conference. We haven't yet heard back, but we should also point out the Sheriff's Office and the sheriff overnight posted a statement on Facebook following the release of that video saying in part, quote, Deputy Grayson had other options available that he should have used, adding Grayson, quote, will now face judgment by the criminal justice system and will never again work in law enforcement. And we've also confirmed tonight the Department of Justice says, in their words, they are aware of and assessing the circumstances around this shooting. Morgan.
Maggie, thank you. And coming up, Paris on high alert. With the opening ceremony for the Summer Games just days away, our Richard Engel takes us through all of the steps being taken to keep the games safer than ever. But first, hey, you got to see this. An explosion happened in Yellowstone National Park's Biscuit Basin this morning. Look at this. But instead of lava coming out, that is steam. This took place after super hot water erupted from underground, and the geyser sent everyone running for cover. You can get a glimpse of some of the damage in the aftermath there. Fortunately, no one was hurt here, but that sudden blast did destroy the basin's boardwalk. That area now, of course, absolutely closed. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world now. In Canada, a raging wildfire has forced the evacuation of Jasper National Park. Thousands have fled their homes in the past 4 days because of the large fires, and authorities issued an emergency alert for the park and the town of Jasper. Over 160 wildfires are active near Alberta, with more than 7,000 people currently facing evacuation orders. Mudslides triggered by heavy rain in southern Ethiopia have killed at least 229 people, and many of those victims included children and pregnant women. The country's prime minister calling it a terrible loss and deployed a disaster task force to aid rescue efforts. A mass shooting at a care home in Croatia has left 6 people dead and 6 others wounded. Among the victims, 5 elderly residents and 1 employee. The suspect, meanwhile, fled the scene but is now in police custody. Both the Croatian prime minister and president have called for stricter gun control laws in the wake of that attack. And Andy Murray, a 3-time Grand Slam champion and 2-time gold medalist, has announced he will officially retire from tennis after the Paris Olympics. The 37-year-old recently withdrew from Wimbledon due to an injury. Murray will still compete in both the singles and doubles events at the Olympics, representing Great Britain. And now to Paris and, of course, the big Olympic countdown. Athletes from all over the world are arriving in the City of Light ahead of the opening ceremony this week, and some familiar fans, well, they're flooding in too.
Out here on the streets of Paris, and guess who shows up at this skate park? That is Nigel Houston. He's here for some gold, and we just saw him hit his trick. Check this out.
Toute ma vie j'ai déménagé, j'ai vécu en banlieue, j'ai vécu dans Paris même.
And where else would Gadi be other than a skate park in Paris, right? Tomorrow will be the first major security test, though, a soccer match between Israel and Mali. NBC's Richard Engel is in Paris with a closer look at the massive security operation.
High security is now just the reality of the Olympics. These have been a magnet for terrorist attacks going all the way back to Munich, also Atlanta. And this year in particular, because of the climate, with the ongoing war in Gaza, there is a heightened concern. Also, because of the way that these Olympics, and particularly the opening ceremony, are taking place, is causing a concern and is drawing in even more security. Because the Olympics aren't just being focused in one stadium or cluster of stadiums. They're going to be all across Paris. The opening ceremony is going to go up and down the Seine River. It means that there's many potential targets, many sites that the security forces have to protect. So France is throwing everything they possibly can at it. They've already started making arrests. They've put people on blacklists who are not allowed to come anywhere near the games. And they're drawing in so many security forces. They're bringing in highly trained special operation counter-terrorist commandos, hundreds of them, more than 600 from different units. They're going to be traveling around Paris in armored vehicles like this, flying above the city in helicopters so they can react to any kind of incident within minutes. A commander told me that their biggest concern is a repeat of the Bataclan attack, where you have terrorists going through the city with assault rifles, trying to kill people and using bombs, and a complex rolling attack. And that's the kind of thing that they're prepared for, that they train for, and they obviously want to prevent. Just on the day of the opening ceremony, 45,000 police are being brought in to protect the opening ceremony, which is spread out all across Paris. And that's an unprecedented number in France. So they are pulling in all the resources that they possibly can because there's so much attention here. You have the athletes to protect. You have 120 world leaders coming here and 15 million anticipated spectators.
And you can watch the opening ceremony this Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on your NBC station, NBC.com, Peacock, and the NBC Sports app. Still ahead tonight, it seems like a broken record up and down the West Coast, raging wildfires and intense heat. The areas most at risk and when there could finally be some relief. Coming up. Stick around. And welcome back. Here's some of the stories happening out west we're following right now. The L.A. County Superior Court, the biggest trial court in the country, opened back up today. The court was closed yesterday due to a ransomware attack that officials say shut down its computer system late last week. The Superior Court serves L.A. County's 10 million residents and spans across 36 courthouses. So far, officials stress the investigation shows no data was compromised. Today, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, the man charged in the 1996 killing of Tupac Shakur, asked a Las Vegas judge to be on house arrest instead of jail before his trial. This is after the judge denied Davis's release last month over the source and legality of the money he wanted to post as bail. According to Davis's attorney, he has since submitted records showing the source is indeed real. Arizona officials are warning hantavirus, a virus spread from rodents to humans, is causing an increase in possibly fatal lung syndrome. There have been 7 confirmed cases and 3 deaths in the last 7 months, according to a recent health alert. Most cases are being reported in the western and southwestern U.S., and there's no specific treatment or vaccine to prevent that virus. Also out west, millions are preparing for another brutal heat wave that's already fueled dangerous wildfires up and down nearly the entire West Coast. The fight especially tough in Oregon, where crews are battling more than 100 fires, including the Lone Rock Fire, which has already torched more than 120,000 acres. And just a few hours east, another blaze, the Durkee Fire, is forcing evacuations and the shutdown of a major interstate. Here in California, a wildfire east of L.A. earlier this week destroyed at least 3 homes and damaged several others. All of this, as scientists revealed this past Sunday, July 21st, was the hottest day recorded on Earth since at least 1940, beating the record set just last year. NBC News meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins me now. Michelle, there's now a new record for the hottest day ever. So I'm curious about the significance of that. And is that playing a role in the conditions that people are dealing with currently on the West Coast, especially with hundreds of wildfires?
Yeah. Hi there, Morgan. Great to see you. And there is absolutely a link. It seems like I sit here and I say every day we've broken a record somewhere, whether it's rainfall, whether it's a high temperature for the day. And that's what we're seeing day after day after day. And that is the link to climate change. So wildfires, they need hot temperatures, they need low humidity, and they need really dry brush. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing these wildfire seasons starting earlier and lasting longer. And look at this tomorrow, 29 million Americans under heat alerts. We have heat watches, we have heat warnings, heat advisories. Where you see the hot pink, that is a heat warning. And we're looking at temperatures once again in the triple digits, and it's lasting longer and longer. So look at these temperatures. We're going to see record-breaking temperatures once again tomorrow in the west into the triple digits for so many, if not into the upper 90s. Burns, we're looking at 98 degrees. The record there is 98. So we certainly could break the record there, or at least tie it. Missoula, Billings, Grand Junction, also looking at temperatures into the triple digits near record territory. Phoenix, 113. Lancaster looking at 110. The record there is 109. Unfortunately, we're going to see this stay put as we head throughout the next couple of days. Las Vegas, 113 on Thursday. That's 8 degrees above what is typical for this time of year, 115 in Yuma. And we're looking at that temperatures scooting to the east as we're looking at temperatures into the 90s in the middle of the country. And Morgan, this will continue into the weekend as well. So we're going to watch that very, very closely. Also watching this fire danger here because we're looking at red flag warnings in portions of the west because of that low humidity and also the low humidity and high temperatures. Back to you.
I should add that we've learned one of those fires here in Southern California, Michelle, was started by fireworks of all things. Meanwhile, if we go to other parts of the country, not so much a fire threat we're hearing about here, but actually the opposite, heavy rain, even flooding. We have scenes like this in Dallas yesterday even.
Yeah, you know what, Morgan, sorry to interrupt you on that. And this is also a link to climate change. Once that the air gets warmer, it's going to hold more water. And that's why we're seeing these flooding events so often. We're seeing, you're out of Texas, or you were out of Texas. I know now you're in California, but we're looking at that heavy rain falling from the south central states all the way to the mid-Atlantic. This is a slow moving front. I've been talking about this front since Sunday. That's another part of that climate link where things don't move. It's almost like a traffic jam in the atmosphere. Fronts begin to stall, and that's what we're seeing. This has been sitting here since Monday, and we're looking at heavy, heavy rain along this front. Where you're seeing those darker colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, that's where we're seeing those heavy downpours from Texas all the way to portions of the mid-Atlantic states. We had a tornado warning in Virginia just about an hour ago, and we're looking at the chance for flash flooding tomorrow. That is particularly dangerous. It is hard to outrun. It can push cars. It can turn over cars, and that's where it becomes particularly dangerous. Morgan, we're looking at really high rainfall rates. In addition to saturated soil, also looking at the chance of 7 inches of rain in Texas through Thursday. Back to you.
Extreme conditions almost no matter where you look. Michelle, thanks for keeping us posted.
Sure.
We have much more tonight on the shakeup in the 2024 race. A lot's been said over the last 48 hours about younger voters come November, and it's a demographic that President Biden was losing ground with. NBC News' Antonia Hilton went to a key battleground state to see what Kamala Harris can do to win him back.
In battleground Michigan, young voters are processing President Joe Biden's historic decision to exit the race. Already, momentum is shifting to his vice president, Kamala Harris.
I think she really has an opportunity now to rebrand herself and introduce herself to the country in a new way.
These Gen Zers are all Democrats and have never had the opportunity to vote for a president who wasn't in their 70s or 80s.
What do you think it is about her? We know that she's a powerhouse speaker.
She has a level of authenticity that, you don't always see from politicians.
For weeks, young people have been sharing memes across social media, highlighting Harris's speeches and affectations. One Gen Z favorite,
"You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?"
A May 2023 speech in which Harris shared something her mother used to say.
"You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?" You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
Growing up, I didn't think that an Indian woman like me could even be involved in politics.
They're worried about reproductive rights, gun control, and climate change.
She has been the Biden campaign's most effective messenger on the issue of abortion access and reproductive freedom.
But young people have been unsure about Biden. In Michigan, a state with a large Muslim population, many communities are outraged by the Israel-Hamas war and grateful to Harris, who has long pushed for a ceasefire.
That's the bare minimum that we've been asking for, and I think the main issue is that we're not seeing any change. I think we will stay uncommitted until we can build trust.
A Tufts University study found Michigan had the highest youth turnout in the nation in 2022.
I feel like this country has a long history of not really listening to the younger population, and I think Gen Z is just at a point where we're just tired of feeling unheard.
Do you think she's still going to have to fight to earn the youth vote?
Oh, yeah.
But for now, they say, she's been able to breathe new life into an election they thought had gone stale. Antonia Hilton, NBC News, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
And breaking tonight, new Bodycam footage released shows the aftermath of the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. The video you're about to see begins on the roof moments after where the shooter was killed. NBC News editors blurred some of what you're about to see. However, the images remain graphic.
We don't know. So this is the guy
yes, Beaver County sniper scene and sent the pictures out. This is him.
Okay.
Now, this footage was released tonight by Republican Senator Chuck Grassley. And Grassley's calling for, quote, more answers about the shooting and the security around the event since it took place. Meanwhile, we're getting a stunning new analysis of the assassination attempt from the NBC News Digital docs team, who recreated the perspective of witnesses and even tracked the movements of the shooter and security.
At 6:02 p.m., former President Trump walked on the stage. Thousands were there to see him speak. They would witness the first assassination attempt of a president in more than 40 years. He was immediately surrounded by Secret Service, his ear bloodied. By 6:13 p.m., he was rushed off the stage.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head. Bloody.
In a video posted to TikTok, rallygoers noticed the shooter at least 2 minutes before shots were fired. By identifying features of the building and matching the location of the tree in the video, we can tell that this was filmed about 200 feet from the shooter. The gunman was on the rooftop of a nearby glass and plastics company, 450 feet from President Trump. In that same video, one officer appears to be walking along the building, another standing nearby. All of this happening as Trump addresses the crowd. Other attendees also spotted the gunman.
We noticed the guy bear crawling up the roof of the building. We could clearly see him with a rifle. We were telling the police. We were pointing at him for the Secret Service.
Earlier, the would-be assassin was seen behaving suspiciously near the metal detectors at the entrance to the event. In this video, a man who appears to be the shooter was filmed watching the rally near the building he would use for his attack. According to a senator briefed by Secret Service, there was a report of a suspicious person an hour before the shooting. The Secret Service alerted snipers 9 minutes before Trump took the stage.
This is a big crowd.
A local official says that he pulled his head up over the roof where he saw the shooter, who pointed his rifle at the officer.
One of the officers actually boosted the second officer high enough for him to grab hold of the roof. When he was able to pull his head up over the roof, he did in fact see an individual with a weapon.
He saw the shooter?
He did.
And what did the shooter do?
Turned towards him, his weapon pointed at the officer.
He says the officer ducked his head and fell 8 feet to the ground and radioed for help. Law enforcement tells NBC News that there were multiple counter-sniper teams at the rally handling security. Video captures one team about 150 feet northeast of Trump appearing to react to something just before the first shot is heard. At 6:11 p.m., Trump turns his head to reference a chart on stage.
If you want to really see something...
Moments later, popping sounds erupt. Nine shots are heard over 16 seconds, ending with one person killed, the former president wounded, and 2 rallygoers seriously injured. The gunman dead on the rooftop. There were 3 sets of bleachers behind Trump. This man was in the bleachers over Trump's right shoulder.
I was in the set of bleachers, the very far left of the podium. I heard several gunshots. The man beside me suffered a gunshot wound to the head, was instantly killed, fell to the bottom of the bleachers.
50-year-old firefighter Corey Comparator, a father of 2 daughters, was directly in the line of fire between the rooftop and the podium. He was killed shielding his family. David Dutch, a 57-year-old Marine veteran, was seated in the bleachers on the opposite side of the grandstand. He was also hit by gunfire. 74-year-old James Copenhaver, seated in the same area, was also shot. The hospital says both are in serious condition. The FBI is now leading the investigation into the assassination attempt and security at the event.
Well, before we go, it is time for the future of everything. Space tourism might still be an emerging idea, but some startup companies are already gearing up to take you to the stars. So what exactly will liftoff look like? We'll count you down next in the future of space. All right, welcome back. And time now for some future of everything headlines. Elon Musk and Tesla are jumping in on the humanoid trend. In a social media post, Musk said the robots will first be used by the auto manufacturer before making them to sell in 2026. The tech billionaire says he expects the robots, called Optimus, creative, right, to be ready for use in Tesla factories by the end of this year. And a special sight in the sky. Tonight, a waning gibbous moon, my favorite, will meet the planet Saturn. How can you get a look exactly? Well, find yourself a good view of the eastern horizon around 11 Eastern tonight. You'll be able to see a 90% illuminated moon slightly higher in the sky and just to the right of Saturn. Don't worry if you can't get outside tonight, because you will have another chance come tomorrow. And speaking of space, why use a telescope when you could snag an even more stellar view of the stars? Space tourism is absolutely growing, and while big companies are offering pricey commercial flights, some startups are going a different route. CNBC's Magdalena Petrova explains.
So we're standing in front of a mock-up of our space tourism capsule. The capsule itself is designed to carry 8 customers and 2 crew into the stratosphere. The actual capsules, inside of the capsule, there will be a center bar where people can gather, and then, of course, there will be a bathroom aboard the capsule, considering these are going to be 6-hour-long flights.
Ryan Hartman is the CEO of Worldview. The Tucson, Arizona-based company was founded in 2012 and is one of a number of startups hoping to hoist tourists to the stratosphere using pressurized capsules and massive gas-filled balloons.
The largest balloon that we manufacture is for our space tourism business. It's about 600 feet long, which is the length of this entire table.
Worldview says that when fully inflated, its tourism balloons will be big enough to fit an entire football stadium on the inside and be able to lift over 10,000 pounds. But Worldview is not the only company working on this technology. Founded in 2019 in Florida, Space Perspective has raised around $80 million to date and recently revealed the design of its Spaceship Neptune capsule.
Spaceship Neptune is going up to 100,000 feet, approximately 20 miles above the Earth, where you can see that curvature of the Earth. You'll be able to see roughly 450 miles in every direction.
Recent polls show that only 35% of Americans say they would be interested in traveling on a private spacecraft to orbit Earth. For the remaining 65% of people, there could be another option, traveling to the stratosphere. But unlike SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic, these stratospheric balloon companies will not take passengers all the way into space, the start of which is generally accepted by the U.S. government to be around 80 kilometers, or around 50 miles above the Earth's surface. Instead, most of these balloons will reach heights of about 15 to 19 miles above the Earth's surface, flying in an area known as the stratosphere. For reference, this is still nearly 3 times higher than the altitude at which most commercial flights travel. We asked the companies about this detail. There were people that argue that Worldview's marketing as a space experience is sort of misleading. What do you say to those people?
Well, our experiences around viewing our Earth and experiencing the darkness of space. And at 100,000 feet, people are going to be able to see the termination line where night is turning into day or day is turning into night, and see that moving across the surface of the Earth. They're going to be able to see weather forming and moving. They're going to see an organic Earth. They're going to see a living Earth. And that's what's most important to us.
All the stratospheric balloon companies we spoke to are still developing and testing their systems. Only Zafalto has performed any crewed tests so far, though not at the company's target altitude of about 15 miles above the Earth's surface.
The first flight with the first prototype took place in 2018. Now it's the 5th generation, and we'll fly at 25 kilometers before the summer.
We have approximately 10 uncrewed test flights to do before we start flying with people.
Space Perspective and Worldview would not give CNBC an exact date for when they plan to begin commercial flights, but Zafalto said the company is aiming for 2025. When they do get off the ground, Worldview, Space Perspective, and Zafalto all say their experiences will last several hours. Prices per ticket vary, ranging from $50,000 per seat with Worldview to around $184,000 per seat with Zafalto. By comparison, the trips offered by Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin are much shorter and much more expensive. Virgin Galactic, for example, sells tickets to its 90-minute-long flight for $450,000 per seat. Compared to rocket-powered space tourism, the physical sensation that passengers will experience on a stratospheric balloon ride is much more comparable to being on an airplane. Passengers will not experience weightlessness.
This is not a thrill ride. The capsule is designed as in what we call a shirt sleeve environment, where you don't have to wear any specialty equipment.
We don't need any physical requirements to board the balloon. If you can board a standard plane, you can board the balloon.
For our customers, this is all about the incredible experience of seeing Earth in space. And we'll be able to give them that experience without the high Gs that come with rocket flight, without having to do any of that training.
Under current regulation, commercial companies in the United States do have to abide by a few rules to get a FAA license to fly their vehicles, which includes requirements for flight crew training and qualifications.
Right now, these include showing that you have life support. You need to show that your vehicle is going to operate the way that you intend it to operate, and that's done through a demonstration of an actual operational test flight.
All indications tell us that space tourism is here to stay. I think that that kind of belief is inherent in all of us, that we want to understand our Earth. We want to understand the planet.
$50,000 for a few hours ride? I'll start saving now. Well, that does it for us tonight. And a reminder, tomorrow at 8 p.m. here on NBC News Now, complete coverage of President Biden's Oval Office address. I'm Morgan Chesky. We'll see you tomorrow, but until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.